And, one thing that I have to give them serious props for is embodying the different types of dragons and playing out kind of the lore and personality that comes with each of these types, which for so long was just a nerdy esoteric detail for dungeon masters that, red dragons are like this.
Yeah.
Thordak is the reddest of red dragons, but this, as far as I'm aware, this is the only media where I've thought, but that is specifically a red dragon. That is a very red dragon thing to do, to just threaten as much violence as you need to. Don't bother with any sort of sustainability in your ruling. Just threaten as much violence as you need to, and if people call you on it, enact as much violence as you need to.
I've never seen that before. I've never seen it. That's the most unrealistic show of power I've ever seen in my life.
Dragon claw, wing and scale. Come now, let's examine a tale of the greatest beast ever considered. Another episode of Big Flying Lizards.
Welcome to Big Flying Lizards, a dragon movie and television podcast. I am your host, Bryce Wilson, and we are joined once again by Colby Ford, Dungeon Master Extraordinaire, great friend to the show. How are we doing, Colby?
We're doing good. Lazy Sunday, man. It's the most active thing I've done all day.
My dogs would have rioted and burned down the house if I didn't take them on I won't say the magic word because they will come find me, but we took them on an excursion outside and
promenade.
A stroll, some would say, a jarry around. But Colby, what are we doing here today? We're talking dragons, but what specific dragons are we talking about today?
We're talking 4/5 of the Chroma Conclave. Spoilers, I guess.
We are back in the world of Critical Role. We're back at Legends of Vox Machina Season 2, getting ready, gearing up for Season 4 that's going to be coming off. Now, we do definitely have a lot of homework before we get there, but I think with my 12-step plan, we can get there. But that's not here for us today. Today, we're talking about arguably one of my favorite arcs, and I think it's a little unfair to call this an arc because it is so massive, but I think the Chroma Conclave is one of my favorite arcs of all time in all of Critical Role history. Now, it might be a little biased, but there's so many reasons I love this arc. And if it's all right with you, Colby, I would love to just talk about the arc from Critical Role side right up the top before we dive in, so we can strictly talk about the episode in and of itself. But for me, I love the Chroma Conclave, one, because it feels like original material for Matt Mercer. While yes, technically the Briarwood arc was original for Matt Mercer, it felt like a Romeo and Juliet Curse of Strahd sort of situation that was going on. And then and again, spoiler alert, Vecna is not a Matt Mercer original, but I'm sure that if they were to do it now, it wouldn't be Vecna, it'd be somebody else. But still, like, even though it was amazing and there's some amazing moments that we'll get to once we talk about Season 4, it's still the Thordak feels like an original creation of Matt Mercer. And clearly he was very excited to get this cooked up.
Yeah, and clearly he had it thought through to a pretty deep extent. He was working in people's backstories, working in the Aramente, and the elemental plane of fire becomes so important in the campaign. It's kind of where they hit their stride as streamers, and we're really starting to get comfortable with the thought that this was going to be a thing. And they really did some of their best work.
Well, I know when we talked about the Briarwood arc, I said that I was listening to Critical Role to just sort of stay in the loop of what's going on. I'm not torturing myself, but I am trying to make it so I only run off of 2 hours of sleep, and I am trying to consume the material here, getting these episodes out in time, and while trying to listen to the Critical Role just so I can see the differences. And again, I am going to bring this up now because I did really love the first 3 episodes, but I do think, and it's very similar to the Bard's Lament. I think it was actually a very interesting decision and potentially a nerfing of the character development of Vox Machina to take out on I mean, obviously you can't go back into Krieg's house and do that, but like that whole escapade where, and again, I know that there was a lot of just unfettered disrespect shown to Marisha, but the whole windwalk shenanigans there. But I do think that that whole experience, one, it could have taken 5 to 10 minutes. It could have literally just been like a Scooby Doo cutscene of all the characters just in a clusterfuck, showing that they're still just a bunch of fucking idiots trying to save the world. But two, like, I think the conversation that Vax has with Vex saying, hey, what are we doing here? What's our purpose? Like, we're
Yeah.
supposed to be these elevated heroes, but we're over here robbing houses. We're running around with criminals. Like, what is our role? Like, I think that that is one, just a real character builder, and two, just they try to make these characters seem like they're growing. And I do think they do a really good job at that character development, but they had such layups that they could have used straight from the source material.
Mhm.
Now, again, when I first watched these episodes, it really felt like Liam O'Brien was angry at Travis Willingham. I know that they're professionals, and I don't think that they were actually angry with each other. And maybe that's sort of the direction that they just didn't want to seem like there was any animosity towards each other. But at the same time, like, I don't know what's your general thoughts, because maybe I'm just too much of a purist and I want to see like a bunch of shenanigans in an episode.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I've been on this show many times wishing that a lot of shows just had more episodes and spent more time developing things. And I think that's something that you get from the medium of an actual play. You get this time and this slow development of these themes that works so much better than when you're trying to like base character development off of, one offhand comment in one episode and then, a short scene in another episode. I think that there was so much to condense into even 2 seasons of this show
Yeah.
that you're going to lose a lot. And I think the show is worse for it. Like, I think that they could easily have done a 16 episode thing and had some less rushed moments.
Yeah. Well, I also think it's interesting. And again, I am willing to take the flack if I'm wrong at this point. I haven't been paying attention to the numbers on like how well the uh campaign 4 is doing in streaming numbers, but I can't imagine. I'm sure it's better than campaign 3, but I'm sure that it's also not back up to campaign 2 numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a fair assessment to say,
I'm not
or
even sure either. I haven't looked into that, but I suspect the same. I think just in my little D&D community, I hear less and less about Critical Role by the month,
yeah.
which is, which is a little sad, but I think that it is something that was all the rage for a moment, and they haven't changed it that much, and they shouldn't. I don't think that they should try to change up their platform completely all the time.
For sure.
But yeah, I think as time goes on, at least the people that I've been gaming with feel less urgency to keep up to date with Critical.
Well, I think my hot take is back when this show was getting released and produced, Critical Role was supporting this project as a way to like it was more of the show was their pet project,
Yeah.
and Critical Role is their main project. And the fan base might disagree with me, but I feel like Critical Role is now almost their pet project, while the TV shows is the moneymaker. Like they're both like, I know that The Mighty Nine was the most well watched show in Amazon. Like, I don't know. They obviously don't release their numbers, but they were saying that it was the most popular show at the time. And Invincibles was on, The Boys was on, like a ton of these shows were on, and Critical Role was the number one. So I imagine that they're making quite a bit of money from this show from Amazon at this point of time. And it just really feels like that's where the actual money is coming in, while this is, as sad as it may sound, more of on the back of mind and not as much of a concern to them.
Yeah. Well, and I wonder a little bit, and this is literally off the top of my head right now. So like a grain of salt. But I really wonder if they popularized D&D to such an extent that so many people just went and started playing it and no
Yeah.
longer felt the need to watch 4-hour episodes because, they're in their own 4-hour D&D games.
Yeah.
And that leaves less time to watch slightly better trained actors do the same thing. I think bringing Brennan Lee Mulligan on was a good move, but I think even he might be the Jesus of D&D right now, but even his what I consider to be genuine brilliance, I don't think that's going to make the episodes shorter or make people have more time these days.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and now you can tell me if I'm wrong here, but I still have not finished Mighty Nine because I've committed to my fan base that I was going to react to the show with
uh-huh.
them on it. So I've only made it through the first two episodes of the show, but I think it was a brilliant move on their part to do 40-minute episodes
Yes.
versus 20-minute episodes. They feel so much better paced. You feel like you get so much more character. And even though there's only, I think, 8 episodes in
Yeah.
the season, there's a genuine difference in the storytelling, making the episodes 45 minutes. And I wish that I could have just gone to the Critical Role team with this genie in a bottle. I guess it's more Amazon rather than Critical Role. Just say, hey, look, this is going to be the most popular show that you're going to do. 40-minute episodes, 8 episodes. What are we doing here?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if they had thought that the Mighty Nine was going to happen, I'm sure they would have been pushing for 40-minute episodes for Legend of Vox Machina. I mean, two shows end up having such a different feel.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm with you. I do prefer Mighty Nine's animated show because, while it's the same people making the choices behind the characters, they are going for something a little more complex and they were given the time to bear that out on film, which is so much better.
And again, I'm hoping that there's a difference, even though I really love the animation style of Legend of Vox Machina. When you watch Mighty Nine, it's a night and day difference. The level of detail that's in every shot. Like, I really hope that they pour that money into season 4, because if we get to see a battle over Vasselheim, where Vasselheim is all we saw Vasselheim in these episodes, but we get to see that battle where Vecna's this lich god that's going to be like, I really hope that that level of budget is there. But I don't want to sound pessimistic, but I almost wonder, like, I don't know. I've seen animation shows, and I'm sure that the Mighty Nine is, I know that the actors in there, they care about their characters significantly more in the Mighty Nine than they do in Vox Machina. They clearly are putting so much more effort into it because they've seen that that's their stride. And even if they do 5 seasons, which I hope they do 5 seasons rather than 4 seasons, I could also see them being like, hey, let's just get Vox Machina taken care of so we can just solely focus on it.
Yeah, honestly, if they did like an 18 episode 4th season, that could be satisfying for the Vecna.
Yeah. But again, we'll see. We'll see in June. But let's focus here in the now. We're in season 2. We don't know what vestiges of Divergent are quite yet. We know we have hints at it. We don't have beards on Goliaths yet. Like, the world is right now.
Everything is going well in Emon.
Everything. And I don't know. So if it's all right with you, I'd love to kick off the first episode. I'll have this thought, and it has nothing really to do except for the first 10 seconds of the episode, but bear with me. But I'll go ahead and introduce episode 1, if that's all right.
Absolutely.
All righty. Legend of Vox Machina, season 2, episode 1, Rise of the Chroma Conclave. The episode kicks off by celebrating Vox Machina's triumph over the Briarwoods, which inspires Sovereign Uriel to advocate the throne and form a new governing council. The festive atmosphere is instantly shattered when the 4 Colossus dragons descend upon the capital city of Emon. The terrifying alliance of 4 deadly dragons, Thordak, Umbrasyl, Borogal, and Raishon, unleash their destructive power onto the city. Despite Vox Machina's new fame and power, the ancient monsters easily dominate the city and transform it into a smoldering inferno. The devastating loss brings out personal doubt among the heroes, particularly the ever optimistic Scanlan, who wonders if their past victories even matter against this kind of adversity. Moved by the plight of the city's refugees, the team resolved to fight back rather than surrender. The episode wraps up with the party stepping through Keyleth's portals, seeking magic and aid from the ancient city of Vasselheim. Now, I just want to quickly point out before we talk about the dragon apocalypse that we witnessed over here that Emon actually really reminded me of Ba Sing Se, and we both know that the cast of Critical Role love Avatar:
Yeah.
The Last Airbender, but just with how the city is set up, how it's a circle, and how there's multiple walls, and there's clearly like some like high rails set up, it really seems like they took a lot of inspiration from Ba Sing Se with their design of that.
Yeah.
And it's just fun to see that.
And then they destroy it like a sandcastle. I mean, what percentage of this episode is disaster porn? Honestly.
Well, and something that I really, and actually, I want to first highlight Nana. I see you here in the chat, Nanny. A BFL podcast dropped. I know we're back. I apologize, guys. Work has been keeping me shackled to the desk, and so I have been all over the place. But I am here. We're with Colby Ford talking about Legends of Vox Machina. But I really like that this, like, and again, we're not going to be doing dragon grades at the end of this episode today, just because we want, in this show, there will be specific episodes dedicated to the dragons. And I feel like it will be specific to that. Nana said, did someone say porn? Hey, we're really gunning for that bad dragon sponsorship over here, Nana. So we're really trying to do what we can. But I love the fact, because in media, dragons are depicted as either sentient beings that are just like sort of powerful, majestic, or they're natural disasters. And in this, they've almost combined them together, where clearly intelligent monsters that can just rain such destruction that nobody can even comprehend. But at the same time, they're so conniving, they're tactical, they know what they're doing. Like it very much almost looked like fighter jets, like how they were like even came in and just started like bombing for a lack of a better word, Amon, and just taking them out and just unleashing this just unholy hellfire and poison and acid and ice.
This is something that I'm sure crossed Matt Mercer's mind, but what a perfect time for them to attack. Like, what a perfect moment with all of Tal'Dore's leadership there, with the future of Emon unknown. They swoop in, destroy everything, make it very clear that they're the power on the continent for the moment. I mean, this was planned well in advance, and they did it based off some good intelligence.
And I just want to say, this is one of my favorite episodes of Critical Role, like just from start to finish, because it literally has everything. And like it has like a little bit of party infighting, it has some of flirting among each other, there's some, but then there's also, you see something that you never see in Critical Role, and that's Grog scared. And because I think there was a moment where Grog, Travis Willingham, rolled an attack on the dragons, rolled a 19, and they said, yeah, that's a miss. And there was just silence at the table at a 19 misses. And they're just like, okay, well, does anybody else have any ideas?
Yeah, you can get to a point in a campaign around level 14, 15, 16, where you can genuinely take on just about anything.
Yeah.
I think I could still scare my players with 4 ancient dragons at once. And we've got to remember, these guys are what, level 11, 12?
Yeah, they're at 12.
Yeah, they are not in any position to do anything about this.
Yeah.
Which is something that that you don't often get to pull off in campaigns. It is actually genuinely hard as a DM to put any sort of encounter in front of a party and make it immediately apparent to them that they are fucked,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, I also do think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Colby, but level 10 to about level 13 is again, I'm hoping we get to see this moment animated, but we're practically gods level where
Yeah.
the player has this idea of like them being so powerful because if they literally just sneeze on a goblin or a pack of goblins, they become mist. But at the same time, it's increasingly more difficult to fight these monsters. Again, referring back to this episode in the live playthrough, literally just an hour before the Chroma Conclave showed up in game, not in the sorry, around the table an hour before, not in the actual story, they were fighting purple worms. And there was some just miscommunication on magic spells. And if it wasn't for that, they could have taken out 2, possibly 3 purple worms, in my opinion, which don't get me wrong, purple worms are a big deal. And that's pretty impressive. And I'm sure that to an extent, Matt Mercer was using his like little evil genius of like, yes, give them a little bit, fight, have something fight that they can beat up and kill, and then send in something that they have no shot.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And normally you're supposed to do that by grinding the party down over, an adventuring day and have several smaller encounters that use up resources. It is so difficult when the party is fresh, when they're feeling triumphant and powerful and they've just taken down the Briarwoods, who were so scary themselves, and then to put something in front of them that just says, no, you have to run.
Well, I think that this episode does an awesome job at that because specifically here, the bells are going off, they're firing the bolts, and like the troops are just getting annihilated. It's not even a fair fight. The only person that even comes remotely close to doing anything is Alora, and she does like her magic whip spell that's there and wraps around, I think it's Umbrasyl, and is able to hold Umbrasyl, I think, for a total of 20 seconds before he breaks free. But that's the only thing anyone's able to do during this time. And I love it.
Great example of the Worf effect. Just establish how powerful Alora is and then have her fail.
Yeah.
And, it's believable. It's also important because they're establishing that these aren't just dragons. They're magical creatures in and of themselves. They use magic. They can counterspell things.
Yeah. And I know this wasn't how it was in the playthrough, but I love how they depicted it in the show, where they showed Umbrasyl, they showed Araishon, they showed, what is the frost one's name? I'm blanking. Voragal. They show them just showing devastation, wiping out the city, and just Thordak is literally just chilling back. And the only thing Thordak does during this fight is he turns the castle into a volcano. But it's such an immense show of power and such an immense show of strength that everyone's like, well, fuck, what are we supposed to do? He literally he Death Starred the castle and turned it into a volcano.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, they made a point of framing that castle to make it look so massive. And it really is. It's a castle of fantasy proportions. And then he just murks it.
Yeah.
Like melts it down to its core.
I love the idea. And again, Reign of Fire is just going to be such a fun talk when I eventually cover that movie.
Yes.
But I love the idea of a dragon apocalypse. And this might be odd, Colby, but for some reason, my algorithm shows me a lot of dragon content. I don't know why.
What? You?
But something that I absolutely do love, and I say love as in like if I find it entertaining, not that I believe, is that there's so many like evangelical Christians that are like believing the Leviathan is coming back and we're like days away from it showing, and they're like, it's gonna be a dragon that's gonna be actually the end of the world. If you read here in Luke chapter 7, it says that the great dragon which is frozen over, and I'm like, and where's this gonna happen? Tell me more.
Please make a movie. I don't care how bad it is.
Is Brad Pitt available for this? Like,
seriously.
But it's just Like, and when you see this episode, you can completely understand why people, even in real life, can imagine literally an apocalypse, Revelation style, end of the world could happen, because these are beasts that are just, one, they love killing. They're clearly enjoying it. Raishan is literally cackling the entire time she's poisoning people to death. Umbrasil is like laughing as he's melting commoners.
Yep.
And they're just such sick-minded creatures, but at the same time, there's literally nothing that they can do about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I love the introduction here. They do a fantastic job of, I mean, the sky is glowing, is from in their view from their manor from Castle Grayskull, which is it ever named in the show as Castle Grayskull? I doubt it.
I don't think so. Well, isn't it named after it's named after like an actual fantasy castle that's Castle Grayskull, right? Isn't that like in He-Man or something?
Yeah,
Or
from Masters of the Universe. Yeah.
yeah, so I don't think they're actually allowed to call
Yeah,
it.
probably not.
This is the only time I'm going to be criticizing them in this episode. As I said before, if they would have shown that there's still a level of disconnect, that they're not actually running as a party, if they're still like a bit of like a bunch of bumbling idiots, like almost episode 2 is, in my opinion, like the whole conversation that Grog is having with Earthbreaker Grun, which I'll get back into once there. It sort of would make so much more sense if they would have dedicated at least 5, maybe even 10, if they really want to get into it, minutes, them showing that they're still not working as a team. Because if we think about it, we just got off the Briarwood arc where they came together, they defeated these vampire lords together, and they very much emphasized, like, we worked out all our personal problems, we're all working as a team, we are Vox Machina, and boom.
Yeah.
Like, it's the almost the idea of where Earthbreaker Grun is like, where does your strength come from? We all know, like, spoiler alert if you haven't watched Critical Role, it's your friends. Comes from your friends. And it's, to me, it just, they already are working as a team. They just defeated the Briarwood. So, like, how much more team do they need to get at that point? So, again, I won't beat on this dead horse too much more, but I just think that it would have been, at least, it would have made sense for them to just show how they are just still a bunch of like immature idiots. They don't even have to show them like actively trying to break the law, but unintentionally breaking the law, that they're just so powerful at this point that they are like a menace to society. Like, that could have been just a nice little comedic relief before all Armageddon broke loose.
Yeah. Well, and also I do think they could have made more of Vex's thing with dragons.
Yes.
You know, it could have been made more clear that, 4 dragons at once, they might have taken a crack at one of them if they had shown up alone. If Vorogal had shown up alone, they would have stood and fought. They might have lost, but for at once, you could expect that their confidence is shot.
Yeah.
And I think more could have been made of that. Again, I mean, they had to make room for the disaster porn in this first episode, and I think the message that we get is that these dragons are just plain different from the typical monsters that they've been fighting.
Yes.
That this is something beyond even their capabilities after the Briarwoods. And I don't think we're shown enough for me to be really satisfied that I see why the dragons are different.
Yeah. Well, other than just the scale of devastation,
Right.
like that's like the clear difference, because obviously at this point we have an inkling of the Whispered One, which again, I'm super curious if they're going to call him Vecna or if they are just going to keep going with the Whispered One or not, which we'll find out in June. But I also just think that it's Thordak, and we'll find out this more in episode 2 when we're actually, I think it's episode 3. But even though, yes, Thordak is just raining death and destruction, there is a level of like, worship me. I need you to worship me and give me all of your goods.
Yeah.
That he's, which I mean, it wasn't necessarily that's what we were approaching with the Briarwoods. The Briarwoods were like, follow our orders or we'll kill you and your family, while Thordak is like, it's very Mad King energy
Yeah.
that we're seeing from Thordak.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, bring me treasure or I'll melt you
Yeah.
and
Well,
find
it's
it
not
myself.
but it's not even that, like, because he was and I didn't catch this the first time I watched it, but he was saying to them, like, "Hey, not only bring me treasure, but if you try to leave, I will kill you." So it's not even like, even if they just abandoned everything that they owned, it was like, "No, no, 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 no. I need you to be my loyal subject over here."
Absolutely. And, you know, one thing that I have to give them serious props for is embodying the different types of dragons and
Yes.
playing out kind of the lore and personality that comes with each of these types, which for so long was just a nerdy esoteric detail for dungeon masters that, you know, red dragons are like this.
Yeah.
Thordak is the reddest of red dragons, but this, as far as I'm aware, this is the only media where I've thought, well, that is specifically a red dragon.
Yes.
That is a very red dragon thing to do, to just threaten as much violence as you need to. Don't bother with any sort of sustainability in your ruling. Just threaten as much violence as you need to, and if people call you on it, enact as much violence as you need to.
I've never seen that before. I've never seen it. That's the most unrealistic show of power I've ever seen in my life. Never seen that. Don't know what these fantasy shows are really getting out there with.
I know, right?
Well, on that note, is there anything else that we want to talk about with episode 1 before moving on to episode 2?
I'm just trying to think if I noticed anything. I think we are seeing the very first signs of Scanlan's discontent, which I'm happy they started planting seeds for that early on. I
Yeah,
think that's really necessary.
it is. And I just know when we finally talk about the final season, the final episode of season 3, I will have a lot to say specifically about Scanlan. I
Yep.
will refrain from saying anything right now other than, like, I like that they at least kept some, like, discontent and, like, unsure, and I mean, specifically, like, how Scanlan, like, he is the lifeblood of the party, whether they want to admit it or not, he is the beating heart in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
and you can tell that the beating heart is fluttering. It is failing a little bit.
Yeah. Well, and that was even more true for the live stream,
Yeah.
because just the entertainment value of Sam singing his songs was a huge draw. It's
Mhm.
something that got people in the door and was fun and silly and kept the mood light. You know, every dungeon master wants that kind of player at their
Yeah.
table who just kind of like always has an idea, is always doing something.
And he's a glutton for punishment. He
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't remember seeing these seeds of his discontent this early on in the live stream.
the I will say the only thing that I'm seeing, again, going back, is when he meets Kaylee, which will happen in this season, but we'll talk about that once that episode comes up. You can see an actual shift that Sam does with Scanlan. And it is because before he was trying to change his ways for Pike because he was really playing on how he's in love with Pike. But I think that once he actually saw that he has an in-game daughter, and it's because of his negligence that she had such a rough childhood, and like he acted, and I think, and again, I can't speak for Sam. I don't know Sam Riegel. I don't know Scanlan, but from what I'm seeing and how I see him portraying it, I could very much see that he's recognizing that Scanlan has caused so much pain and so much
Mhm.
unrest and suffering. And it's because Scanlan as a character is in so much pain and he suffers.
Yeah.
And up to this point, he just took it out all out on other people rather than like doing any self-reflection. And
Mhm.
doing this self-reflection is just boiling and boiling and boiling over until, there might be a bard's lament.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like that arc really, or that character arc really starts with the Sphinx, which we'll get
Yes.
to,
Mhm.
because what a moment.
What
What
a
a gut
moment.
punch
Yeah.
for a character.
which I think that's a great segue into this, which is episode 2 of Christians of Vox Machina, The Trials of Vasselheim. The episode kicks off with a hilariously unceremonious entry into Vasselheim as the team tumbles out of Keyleth's portal directly onto a steep cliff face. Instead of receiving a hero's welcome, the group faces a frosty reception from Vasselheim's highest isolationist citizens. Vex and Bax get caught up in a dangerous confrontation with the Slayer's Take, an elite guild of hunters holding a deep grudge against the twins. The cursed blade that Grog has takes hold of Grog, pulling him away from the rest of the crew into the clutches of a mysterious monk. In an intense standout scene, Osisha, the imposing patron of the Slayer's Take, breaks down each one of the members' deepest fears and insecurities, forcing them to confront their own flaws. Osisa recognizes the group's potential and tasks them with a momental quest to find the legendary supernatural artifacts known as the Vestiges. The episode wraps up with the team stepping away from the trials, more unified, determined, and ready to take on the Chroma Conclave. Now, I really like this is a big difference from the show, but I actually really like this difference, showing Vasselheim as this isolationist, like we only worry about ourselves, like we'll help whoever comes like into Vasselheim, like because you can clearly see they're letting in refugees at the time, but they're like, no, we're not going to march out to battle. We're not going to go and take it on, because especially with what's going to be coming up in later seasons, it makes it just that much more satisfying for that sort of arc.
Well, plus it's a separate continent. It's thousands of miles away. If you're familiar with the map of Exandria, as I am, I mean, it would be a monumental task for Vasselheim to send troops in any number. So it makes sense. I think we're seeing a little bit less of that justification in the show. But again, I'm with you. I like the change from this is just the god flavored city to this is the city of the gods, and they are so ancient and so secure that they will never help anyone else.
Yeah.
Because why would they ever need to?
Yeah. It's very much showing the idea of like they are just so powerful of a city. But I also do understand because, and they even explain this in the playthrough show, that Vasselheim is a stronghold fortress. It's not necessarily a powerhouse, but it is the most impregnable city of the cities. Like the walls are massive. It's just weapons all over the place, because it is, and I mean it's had to be this. They've literally had wars fought around this city.
Yeah.
Like it's I sort of love the idea of just an epic religious city, because it's not even run by a king, it's run by a council of theocratic priests essentially that run their city off of that, to the point where they don't sell magic items. Magic items are not allowed in Vasselheim, which I wish that they would have been able to hint at that a little bit more in the show, because that's a big deal in the playthrough.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely curtails what the party would have gotten up to if they had been allowed to use all of their magic and their magic items openly.
Yeah.
I think that they're trying to build a sense that the party is completely out of their element, and they're continually overestimating themselves here, constantly on the back foot. And this is exactly how you show it. You show Percy failing at being a statesman. You show Pike failing at being a cleric. Yeah. You show Grog getting his ass kicked.
Yeah, like they really were showing the weaknesses that everybody does face, because, and I really think Scanlan took it the most personal, because it was really like she she called him useless, called him like she's like, you don't do anything.
Yeah. Yeah. What a gut punch to not just say that, he is bad at, or he is failing at what he's doing, but rather that he is inconsequential.
Yeah.
And that is, I mean, that's what every class clown fears most, is just to be inconsequential, to be not noticed.
Yeah.
and she knew just where to hit him, and you see that reverberate through him
Yeah.
very, very clearly, even to a greater extent than some other characters.
Now, again, I want to first preface that I know that the host of this show was problematic, so I understand why it's not available. But on Talks Machina, I really liked it when Sam would really go into the mind and psychology of Scanlan, because
Yeah.
there's sometimes that you were not really necessarily able to do that. And somebody that he said was a great inspiration for him was Robin Williams, because Robin Williams just had such an ability to make people laugh and like give on this facade that everything was okay, but on the inside he's just chronically depressed, like so upset and just like going through it, but he's putting on the happy clown in front of everybody so that they're not able to see it. And it's showing the cracks a little bit more broadly than it was in the playthrough, but I do still appreciate that they are showing those cracks while he still is cracking jokes, he's still playing his songs and still just trying to be funny with everybody and at this point in time.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. He's still playing the home game Pathfinder version of Scanlan, just standard horny bard, and Osisa comes in and says, "Hey, that doesn't matter. You can't do
Yeah.
anything with that." And he's wrecked.
Yeah. I do want to just rewind slightly. I loved the Slayer's take, like
Yeah.
little bar, like it looked so grungy. I love that it had like a tangled moment where all of everybody grabbed their weapon. I lost it when the guy in the wheelchair just had the blades come out from
I
his
didn't
legs.
notice that.
Did you not see the guy was in a wheelchair, literally just blades extend out of his wheelchair? I'm just like, I'm like, well, I mean, a job's a job, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the Slayer's take is a fantastic. I feel like that could be a campaign in and of itself.
Oh
Just
yeah.
like characters who are members of the Slayer's take and the internal politics there. That would make a fantastic campaign. That's how you can tell that this is a little piece of the world that has been very well thought out.
Yes. Well, and I just love the idea of guilds in general because I mean, shocker, Colby. I know this is going to be breaking news. I love anime. In a lot of these fantasy animes, I'd probably say 3 times out of 5, there is like some sort of adventuring guild that's brought up. And it's a big part of the story, just how these adventurers can get paid. And like whenever I oftentimes ask myself, like, okay, is this the chicken or the egg? Like, did tabletop games inspire this to bleed into media, or did media bleed this over into tabletop gaming? Or maybe is it a little like I genuinely don't know. Like that's the
Me
thing.
neither.
Like,
I'm sure somebody who read a lot of copies of Dragon magazine has some idea, but yeah, I feel like, I mean, the guild structures and that, I mean, that's all based on some real stuff, and Gary Gygax and his buddies who kind of started the hobby out were really into it. So I can see that coming straight in from history. But you're right, it's sort of like echoed back and forth between media and games and media and games. And
yeah,
you know, we've all probably played through all the guilds in Skyrim or Oblivion or Morrowind, and those are some of the most fun stories that you can have in those games.
yeah,
So it's an appealing setting, but this gives us one that's not just like, this is where the fighters go and you get ranks. This is almost an openly corrupt mercenary guild. And I love the edge that it has.
well, and I also love that specifically of all cities, Vasselheim is where they're at. But
Yeah.
like it's to me, and just from a storybook standpoint, I love the idea of the most theocratic city, a city that's built around religion. They almost understand to be a safe city. They have to turn to this, like this is their clasp. Like this is
Yeah.
the clasp, but
Yeah.
and I will say again, like, I'm not as upset because the clasp was literally like such an underground, but I would have loved to even just get a little bit of a glitch, even if it is just like a guild of assassins that are just in
Yeah.
there. That would have been so much fun. But again, like I can't I can't cry over that because there's so much other things that got
I
cut
know,
out.
right?
But you could literally just do an entire show about, like you were saying, campaign. I'm saying, like, and again, I don't want this to become Marvel-fied, but if Critical really wanted to, they could do an entire spin-off show just of the Slayer's take, like, and it would be good.
It would be good, and it would be good fodder for like short campaigns, 3 or 4 episodes at a time, different
Mhm.
cast coming and going. I
And
don't
I
know, you're making me want to run this.
Well, I mean, even just thinking about it, like, it'd be a great way for them to bring back a lot of these characters. Like, I
Yeah.
know they're really trying to bring back a lot of the people that they did shows, like, did guest stars with, and like whenever they did, because we did get who was Cashaw's.
Will Friedle,
Yeah, Will Friedle, and then Zara here.
Mary Elizabeth McGlynn.
Yes. Like they both popped up in this episode and they ate it. They ate
Yeah.
their roles up because and they're fan favorites. But if they did the spin-off show, they would be able to bring back Will Wheaton. They'd be able to
Yeah.
bring out Felicia Day. They'd be able to, like, even people that weren't even associated with the Slayer's take, they'd be able to just like, hey, let's just do like 3 episodes with all these people. And I know that there was some drama with Geek and Sundry and Critical Role within the past couple of years. I'm hoping that that's been resolved, but I'd love to see Felicia Day or Will Wheaton on Legend of Vox Machina. Is it likely? Probably not, but I'd still love it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I personally really liked the splitting of the party and seeing these characters in different company.
Yes.
Even though one half of that really, they did end up with all of the gloomy characters in one half of the, in one party, and all of the fun characters in the other one, which, could have worked better. But I would love to have seen Will Wheaton's character here. Just the most unlucky, powerful adventurer that you've ever seen. That would be a great joke for them to do.
It would have been like, it literally would have been incredible because it would just be a dwarf that's probably as buff, if not buffer than Grog, just come out and just literally crack his knuckles and like break his knuckles well.
Exactly.
Like it'd be one of those things where it's like it's his superpower that he's so unlucky that he's able to accomplish things. But I would have loved to do that. And like here, Critical Role, Travis Willingham. I know you're a listener of the podcast over here, Travis. Free idea. Just take it. Do a Slayer's Take show. You could bring back all the guests that people love, and it could be your Harmon's Quest. Harmon's Quest. They could do Travis Quest, Willingham Quest. Like,
Yes.
it's right there or something like that. Like literally just bring in all the people because they've easily had like 50 guests at this point on their shows, and they all love their characters. Like I know that I mean, I don't know about Napoleon Dynamite's actor. I'm sure he's more of like, yeah, whatever.
What was it? Barbarian?
The Barbarian, the Totem of the Duck.
Totem of the Duck. Was
But,
a
like,
fantastic character.
Fantastic character. But with the exception of that, like I know a lot of people really got excited about their characters and went to conventions dressed up as their characters and just like really leaned into it. And I don't want to say acted like they were part of the team because in a way they were part of the team, but the best way to describe it is they were acting like they were part of the team over there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. It's there you go. Travis Willingham, anyone on Critical Role, make
Free
it
idea.
happen. Free idea. I've got them for days. I wish that that Grog talked to his sword more.
Yes. This is where the infamous outhouse scene would have been, right?
I do think actually it happens later on. Like they do one that's similar, but it would have been right here. But also, again, I'm listening to it right now, and Travis is doing not a cry for help, but he's like trying to show the party that Grog is talking to the sword, but he gets super defensive when anybody does. But you can tell Travis is having fun with it. But he'll just make comments like, "Are you hungry right now? Do you want us to go chop some people up?" They're like, "Did you say something, Grog?" I'm like, "Oh, yep. I just want to go chop up some wood." Yep, I love chopping wood. And I wish there would be some like we got the like hunger, and it's like, yo, yeah, I'm right. I am hungry, and just wanders off. Like I like
Uh-huh.
that, but I would rather there be full-on conversations.
I agree. Yeah, I love the outhouse scene because it is just Grog at his simplest. Um and I more conversations could have given us more of the dynamic between, because the sword is meant to be a character.
Yes.
And, I, like so many dungeon masters, have been guilty of handing the party a sentient item, and then I've done this, and then maybe not actually, figuring out the character all the way, maybe not role playing them to the extent that they could be. So maybe that's what was going on. But I felt like there was a character dynamic.
Yeah.
There was Grog being Grog, and there was the sword being exasperated by how his stupidity actually made him harder to manipulate because he just couldn't understand what he was
Yeah.
being asked to do.
And it worked because, like, with a lot of other characters, they would be accused of metagaming. You're like, oh, they're just trying to do that. But with Travis's Grog, like, Grog is literally just like, I do not understand what you are saying right now.
He's so dumb, he's incorruptible.
Yeah. And I think that they do a good job, but I feel like they could have done a better job of it. Felt more like a cursed object than like a trapped being in a sword. I think if it was 40-minute episodes, we would have seen something different, but
Mm-hmm.
I still enjoy it. And I also, you can even still see it like versus when Grog has it in the first episode, it's just a regular greatsword. In episode 2, it starts to have the curvature on it. And then the next episode, you're gonna see how it's like really beefing up as he's killing the fish people over there.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something that you don't get from the game around the table, but it's great visual storytelling.
Yeah. And it's just such a great little thing that's going on. I do, on the subject of Grog, I do find it a little bit corny on how he walked into Earthbreaker Groon's area. I know they wanted to establish that there, but I feel like they could have done that in a more, I don't even want to say tasteful, but it just felt weird that Grog literally just walked in and it's almost
Yeah.
like Yoda situation, like, I've been waiting for you.
Yeah, they kind of forced it so that they could do the thing cutting back and forth between Osisa and Earthbreaker Groon.
Well,
Mm.
the only difference that I would have made is Grog go to that bar wherever he went and be eating and drinking, and just like the sword is just making him so that he's like stepping on people and like bumping into people and just not really caring. And maybe he bumps into Groon at the bar, like, and Groon is just like, that's not the warrior's way or something like that. And that's how this all gets kicked off. Like, to me, that
Yeah.
feels a lot more natural than,
Or just make it clear how bored he's getting with all of the diplomacy.
yeah,
I think even with 5 more minutes in the episode, they could have intercut some of Grog doing some heavy eye rolls and some every time they're literally falling asleep every time they're talking, which was the thing that motivated him in the actual play.
yeah,
I think they could have used that. And I think here they seem to have just been so pressed for time that they didn't have the opportunity to tell us why he's going into that ring. And even if the reason that he had was shallow and stupid, it's a Grog reason. It's
yeah.
a shallow and a stupid reason because he's Grog and he's shallow and stupid.
I will say as well that something that the show does an amazing job at, that I think that does a better job than the actual playthrough, is when Travis is not around the table and either Matt takes Grog out or Matt's playing Grog, like like Travis has been called the best 5e player of all time over here. And I think to a lot of ways he's earned that title over there. But at the same time, I definitely think that the party has relied on having their literal just rabied meat shield that they
Yeah.
can throw into battle. And in this episode in particular, there's, I think, like 3 or 4 times that Scanlan is like, "Where are you, Grog?" Like,
Yeah.
Grog, I need you right now, Grog."
Yeah.
And there's so many times that they relied on Grog in the playthrough to a point where I don't think that they even realized they relied on Grog
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of the nature of the beast with the 5th edition Barbarian. It is such a powerful class that they end up being, if fighting needs to be done, the Barbarian's going to handle it.
Yes.
And that's how they treated him in the actual play, and that's how they treat him in the show. He's, every character kind of has their superhero specialties.
Mhm.
Scanlan makes body parts out of purple magic, and Keyleth does nature stuff, and Grog fights. He just fights.
He turns
And
people to mist.
exactly. And we're all very impressed with how he fights. So Earthbreaker Groon turning him into raspberry jelly it's telling us the story we need to be told here.
Yeah.
That there are those who are more studied in this, or who are more instinctual than him, or are maybe more in touch with themselves because monk than he is.
And shockingly more intelligent.
Yes.
Well, this is not really a conversation about the show, but I think it's also just a good conversation to have about tabletop playing in general. I mean, I personally, this, I am biased towards the front line, the tanks
Yeah.
of the battlefield. Like, tanking is my favorite in video games, in tabletop games. I just love it, so it's never really a big concern for me. But I also, if you see the difference between campaign 1 and campaign 2, I think everyone saw how exciting and how cool you got to use magic once you got up to level 2. So nearly everyone, with the exception of Ashley, was like, I want to be a magic user and not really be a frontline fighter. And especially because Blindside was being filmed, there's a lot of things that go wrong in that campaign because there's not a frontline fighter for them to take that on. And I mean, Travis was a warlock and so didn't really have that much HP to be dishing out. Everybody else, like, rogues are not meant to be frontline fighters.
No.
They're just not.
No. Yeah, there's a huge difference between a party with a really good frontline fighter or a barbarian and parties without.
Yeah.
The same way as there's a huge difference between a party with a really effective healer and parties without. There's a level of stress that comes up when you don't have your meat shield who can take anything. And I see that the different parties that I'm running games for, the ones that are the most reliably terrified are the ones without that without that really strong front line, a paladin, a meat shield of some kind.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. It's like they're disarmed without Grog.
Because even Marisha's bow is awesome and can deal out a lot of damage, but monks, they're not meat shields. They're closer to a glass cannon than they are a meat shield, in my opinion, just because they don't stack up that HP. Like, their AC is high, but it's not they're not there to be taking damage consistently.
Yeah, exactly. The barbarian just has those HP numbers that means that you're automatically going to be there for the end of the fight. Kind of regardless of how your dice rolls go, regardless of what happens. That's why every barbarian player goes reckless on every attack, because it's worth it.
Yeah.
And you've got the hit points to spend.
Well, I could do an entire podcast talking about ranking my favorite subclass, but that's also why Zealot. Is it Zealot? Which one's the one where even when you go down, you're still able to fight? Like, that to me I love that so much because it just is.
Yeah. You don't die. You just keep making saving throws and you don't really die.
You don't die till you're dead.
In one of my games, I've got one of those at level 15 right now, and he is terrifying. I'm having to do stuff to his sword to make him less terrifying.
Well, did you give him Displacer Cloak, Colby? Did you give?
No. the rogues got a, or the rangers got a cloak of displacement, and that's bad enough.
So we'll make sure they don't hear this podcast so they know to trade up items over here.
I do love how they set up Osisa's relationship with her mate, whose name I won't even try to remember.
Well, that's what a whole episode is going to be about.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I honestly missed that when I was watching the live play. I know it was there as an idea, but it's something that I didn't notice. And it does give the world some more depth. You know, they make this comment, it's a sphinx. I didn't think there were any more of those left. And, you know, just the idea of this creature from a different time is wonderful. It's why people put a sphinx in a D&D campaign, and they executed it so perfectly here with a nice little acid trip.
Also really do love the idea because riddles are so closely associated with sphinxes just because of mythology and legends that have been passed down. I really love the idea that not only are sphinxes in love with riddles, but because of that, they're able to read and dissect people and understand people just because they have that mind of like
Yes.
just figuring out patterns, figuring out. And so it really wasn't like literally all it took. I almost would have loved there to be like an offhand comment where Scanlan would have said something like, "Get out of my head," or like, "Stop." And she's like, "I'm not. Like, I literally can just see through you based off of who you are and who you've presented to me." Like, that
Yeah.
would have been almost just for me and for us nerds that love the lore of sphinxes there. But I would have loved that to show that, yes, they have magical abilities, but that's not actually their magical ability.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is something I noticed watching, you know, both with Earthbreaker Groon and with Osisa. They both pull one of my favorite dungeon master tricks, which is, you know, my name. You know, you show up to somebody who is meant to be wise, and they already knew you were coming.
Mm-hmm.
And when I play that trick, I can't help but think, how do they know their name? And when Grog meets Earthbreaker Groon, Groon pulls that trick. He says, "Grog, where does your strength lie?" And Grog is like, "How do you know my name?" And then the show doesn't actually answer that, as far as I've noticed.
Yeah.
And I kind of wish they had taken that line and they had given it to Osisa, because that is the kind of thing that a sphinx should do. You know, I've already heard about you. No, I'm not in your head. That's just how intelligent I am. That's just how observant I am.
Yeah. And I mean, like, personality wise, it's not really a good comparison, but I see Osisa sort of like the owl in Avatar that's oversees the library, just so obsessed with knowledge because Osisa is a servant of Ayun, who's the goddess of knowledge in the D&D realm. And so I would love the idea that like Osisa, because she worships the goddess of knowledge, is also like obsessed with just spies and collecting information. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if Osisa was like, she had like several Slayer's Take agents just out and be like, "Hey, there's a group of 7 people that went and talked to the people up in the council," and like just got that information there. So she just knows consistently, like, because sort of like how the owl has his little coyotes that go and collect all of the books, she has her little agents going and just spying and collecting information, collecting knowledge, and just knows.
Yeah, and then you rely a little bit less on the fame of the party, which, you know, at this point, Vox Machina is getting to a level where you expect that people know of them, but we're on a new continent, and we're making a big point that nobody knows them. And it did bug me a little bit that Earthbreaker Groon knows who Grog is, and it's not established why he knows that. Whereas I could have swallowed that a little bit easier if it was Osisa, exactly for the reasons that you said. I imagine her having spies everywhere. I imagine her, you know, being a member of the Cobalt Soul at the same time as being a member of the Clutch and the Myriad and all of the other little secret organizations around Exandria.
I would almost love it if like it goes back to like the one conspiracy where it's all coming from it. Like Osisa oversees like the Slayer's Take.
Yeah.
And I'm blanking on it, but in not Vasselheim, in Emon, the clasp. And then her mate oversees the Cobalt Soul, the on all these other like more prestigious locations, but it's like that yin and yang where she's like, I'm doing what's necessary and needs to be done, while he's like, we need to just preserve it under any circumstances that we need
Yeah.
to do. And again, we're just creating an entire lore off of something that happens for about 7 minutes in this episode.
But yeah, I mean, part of the reason that I think that this show resonates with people is that you can, even if you didn't watch the live play, you can see the depth.
Yeah.
You can sense the depth that is there, and the depth in the world building. Um, even though it's rehashing stuff from D&D lore, even though it's, it's copying off and refining off another show, it gives us a depth and a complexity that I don't think you necessarily get from a completely new IP,
Yeah.
I guess.
Well, and again, I will say this consistently that I feel a little bad for Matt Mercer because I don't think with the show we really get to see he doesn't really get the accolades that he deserves by any
Yeah.
stretch of the imagination. Like he gets to be a villain or two, he gets to be a few side characters and gets to be a cameo. But even like he's not even like I don't even know. Maybe he doesn't want to be, but he's not even in the writing room. Like he's not listed as one of the writers of the show. But this is literally his world. This is his story, with the exception of the 7 players. Those are his creations coming from his mind. And I know it's my conspiracy theory that he chose to become a player because he was feeling a little left out. And I will be willing to say if that's completely wrong, that I'm wrong on that. But I really do think that there's a level of like the other players around the table get to be so involved with this show. And Matt is almost like he's not watching from the sidelines, but in some ways he really is.
Yeah. Yeah, his role is completely overtaken by the art of this show, which is fantastic, and the artists did a fantastic job. But most of what Matt was doing around the table and what got him accolades from people watching Critical Role was his descriptions and how he played and how alive he made these worlds feel. And that's not his job in this show. And so I don't know how he could have gotten what he deserved out of this.
Well, I am glad that he still played Victor in this
Agreed.
episode.
Agreed.
Learn from my mistakes.
I liked her. She had one hand just like me. I mean, again, such a delight. Such a delight. And I was glad that does he come back in the later seasons, or was that the
I
only
believe
time?
so. Yeah,
Okay.
I believe there's more than one time that they go to visit Victor. So hopefully we'll see him again.
Yeah, I mean, he's such a delight. I mean, easily top 5 best NPCs, maybe even top 3. So
Yeah, well, and I didn't feel like he had the same impact in the show because this show is just joke, 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 joke. And so one more in the middle of a shopping sequence doesn't have the same impact as, a fun character in the middle of a multi-hour shopping sequence that's making Travis go to sleep. And then suddenly here's Victor, and Matt is describing how he's got open flames and there's gunpowder in the air. This place could go up at any time. I think it suffers from the change in rhythm.
yes.
From live play to cartoon.
Well, and I think we can both agree. Like we're as funny as we like to imagine the both of us are over here. We are far from comedy experts, but I think the number one thing that we can both admit about comedy is like it's more about timing than anything. Like,
Yes.
comedy is all about timing. Like even like some of the most hilarious jokes I've ever heard in my life would be the most horrific things ever said to somebody if it's any other context or any other time, but it's just perfect comedic timing that would be said at a specific time. And I think with Victor, it's just like you said, that there was just so many jokes going around and the show is just sort of funny that it just sort of fell flat. It would have made it a little bit more interesting if everybody walked out of that experience and they were sort of self-reflecting on all the things that they were told. Scanlan's being told that thinking about how he's worthless. Vex is thinking about how her father doesn't love her. Vax is realizing that he's in love with his sister over here, and just all of that. And then it's Percy's like, "Oh, well, and on top of that, I'm nearly out of black powder. I'm gonna go get some black powder." And then just, "Yes, you want some black powder?" I say, "Hey, yes."
Yeah,
But
absolutely. Victor was such a success because of the background that he popped out of. And the background is a little crowded in this show.
yeah. And again, I think that just speaks to the brilliance of Matt Mercer to be able to literally pull somebody like that out and have
Yeah.
the party fall in love with them.
Yeah, and all of his, all of the characters that he's created that people go back to over and over again. Victor is one, Pumat Soul, Henry Crabgrass. All of them tend to be a bit of a surprise in the moment, and taking something that could have been a little bit boring and adding a little bit of flair to it, as opposed to just another joke in a long line of jokes.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that hasn't translated as well as I wish it could.
No, I'm curious to see how it does translate over because there are a few more. I mean, I really am excited, and I know he's not an NPC, but he's an actual player. But I'm really curious to see how Tarrington Darrington is going to really portray, especially since Sam is not going to be reprising the role as Tarrington Darrington. And I'm just curious to see. Again, I'm sure the guy who's going to be playing him is going to do a great job, but
Yeah.
I'm just really curious to see how that actually all just lays out.
Yeah. Yeah, because again, it's one of those things where the background is almost more important than the joke itself.
Exactly.
He's a noble who's smart and full of himself, but add that to the fact that all of us watching the show live, maybe we were a little bit too convinced of Sam's breakdown in the Bard's Lament, and we were wondering if he was out of the group, and then he just shows up with another character, and he's this completely different thing. And I think that the community would have hated anyone that Sam brought to the table other than Scanlan, and he brought a lightning rod for that, and that was perfect.
Yes, the best way to make them fall in love with a new character is make them so unlikable that it's the full shoehorn effect that they love it.
Full circle, going all the way through unlikable until you're likable again.
Yeah, I can't wait to talk about Tarrington Darrington. But in the meantime, are we good to move on to episode 3, or is there anything else you want to talk about episode? All righty.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to episode 3, Legend of Vox Machina, episode 3, The Sunken Tomb. The episode kicks off with a dark vision experience by Pike, revealing a grim future where Emon is a wasteland under Thordak's tyrannical rule. Guided by Zara and Kashaw from the Slayer's Take, the party braves the frigid, treacherous terrain while Vex and Zara's rivalry flares up. Inside the labyrinth of the sunken tomb, the group encounters magical traps and creatures highlighted by Vex's pinpoint archery and Grog's entangling combat style. Separated into different crypts, Vex and Vax dive into memories of their troubled past, adding deep emotional weight to their bond as twins. Driven by curiosity, Percy triggers a hidden force when opening a sarcophagus, unleashing deadly energy. Vex is struck down, leaving the team devastated as they face the brutal reality of their first major loss. The episode ends on a note forcing the grieving heroes to confront the fragility of life as they mourn over Vex. Now, I do want to ask this question. When I did the watch through first of Critical Role, I felt like their father, like Vex and Vax's father, was more of like an absentee father rather than like an actual just straight up asshole to his children. And obviously, as they played it through, Matt sort of changed the character to be more reflective of being an asshole father. Did you get that same vibe, or was I just reading like too much
Yeah,
there?
I think that this is one of those things where I agree. It was more of an absentee vibe the first few times that the father was mentioned, especially um, earlier on in the show when their interludes were playing the characters' backstories. That was all I knew about their father at that time, was that he was big and important and they didn't really like him, so they ran away. And that's kind of all we got. I think this is a case where they sort of amplified a vibe that wasn't there in the live play.
Yeah.
And sort of retroactively changed Vex and Vax a little bit to make it so that their father was like this. And I think you can see that in their reactions to each other and to others more in the show than in the live play.
Well, and I think it's also a little bit of a missed opportunity just because, and again, I know that this isn't a spoiler alert. Liam O'Brien, during this point in time, his mother was either on the verge of dying or had just died. And so a lot of his rage towards that, he was going through a lot personally, and he was using D&D as a therapeutic release to take all of his frustration out on losing his mother in real life, on taking out this creature that took out his mother in the fantasy world. And so I sort of like the idea of like, hey, them hating their father mainly because they took them away from their mother, and rather than spending time with the person who actually loved them and actually cared for them more than this absentee father. But that's the only thing that I would say is I wish that that would have been more of the sole focus
Yeah.
rather than there. But I also know that it makes for a lot more of a compelling character when it is just like, I mean, I love it when elves get a bad rep to begin with. Who am I to complain?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that I wish that we saw more of their mother in the show, and we understood the connection between the dragons and their horrible upbringing, and why they're so motivated to bring down the Chroma Conclave, or at least for Vex, why she has her dragon powers.
Yeah.
That, this is just one of her fantasy superhero powers, is that she can feel dragons, which is something that they brought over and amplified from the show. Again, she didn't sense dragons as often in the live play as she
Yeah.
does in this. But I think it's really smart that they did that. It does give her more to do other than shoot a bow and have kind of a useless bear.
Yeah.
But I wish that that was borne out in her backstory. I wish we saw the mother, why she was a good mother, why she was the preferred parent.
Yeah.
um again, I think this is a place where an interlude episode, seeing their backstory a little bit more coherently, could have been really good.
And again, people can go back and see my reaction to the first 2 episodes of The Mighty Nein, but again, that's where they did such an amazing job, in my opinion, because again, 1, they were 40 minutes long, and 2, it was almost like for the first 2 episodes, they had 3 or 4 people. I don't even think it was 4. I think they had 3 people that they highlighted their, like, backstories up, and then in the next episode, they highlighted 3 other people, so you could really just get an understanding of
Yeah.
what was going on. And again, they didn't have the budget back then. There's so many things, but again, if I could have shown them how successful this show would have been, I think it makes sense to throw Vox Machina together in the beginning and then have episodes that are flashback episodes periodically, rather than with the Mighty Nein, there's so much more that you can actually grab onto to show their story of forming
Right.
together. But having some sort of flashback episode would have been so much more useful in this situation.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think that, again, it's a little bit of a missed opportunity, because I think that of the two shows, this one is the more mainline cartoon.
Yeah.
This was them just stoked that they would get to make an animated series at all. And all of them love anime, and I wish they had done a One Piece or a Dragon Ball Z kind of thing, where they do just kind of like in the middle of the fight stop and spend an episode on a character's entire backstory. I, if they had had enough episodes to do that, I would have enjoyed seeing that. I
Yeah.
mean, they made a successful comic book run out
No,
of their characters' backstories. Yeah, let us see them. They're great.
yeah, you hear that, Travis? I know you're listening. Get on it. I do like at first I was a little bothered that there was a rivalry between Zara and Vex because in the playthrough they are close. They are
Yeah.
like best of friends, but in this one there's clearly a rivalry and they're clearly going back and forth. I like this change actually. I really like because it makes Zara ending up with Cash seem a lot more, I don't want to say realistic, but understandable because they actually toned down how much of an asshole Cash is in
Yes.
this.
But we lose a lot of Cash. We lose any mention of his god,
Yeah.
which is one of my favorite things about him. Like, he is such a weird character in such a messed up position. And I wish that had shown up in the show. I don't know what they would have done with it, honestly,
Yeah.
unless they did a One Piece style entire episode background.
Well, and again, going back to Vox Machina, I remember that when they he was talking about when he got invited on, he just got so excited and came up with this whole backstory and it's very in depth. And I think even Matt was just like, yeah, I had no idea you were going to do that. So, and I wanted to try, I still wanted to include as much of that backstory in because most people are like, oh yeah, this is Bob. He's from Seattle. Like he likes fish and that's it.
Hi, I'm Cash. I'm married to my god.
And that's the least interesting part of my story. But exactly. I wish that we'd be able to see it. And again, Slayer's Take at show, that would be a great time to just really flesh all of that out.
Yeah. Just a
But
few episodes, a few even storyboards would be wonderful.
And I do really like also, and I think this is the first episode that really showed me the differences in the magic because
Yeah.
before it seemed like, oh, Pike's magic is yellow and Scanlan's magic is blue. And I mean, not blue, purple, but you see Cash when he's casting his spells, it's yellow as well. So it's like almost symbolizing that yellow is divine magic, while
Yeah.
purple is bardic magic. And then Zara had like almost like a maroon red with her magic to symbolize warlock magic. And I
Yeah.
just really liked that little element. It was such a small thing, but it made a difference.
Exactly. And it's again, I think they're deeper characters than this show knows what to do with. And it does, like with the world building, it does kind of enhance the overall feeling that you can sense that, these are people who know more about their characters than we're seeing. I think that's valuable on its own. But I don't know. His Cash and just the idea of somebody who is unwillingly married to his goddess and can't get away from this and doesn't really want to be a cleric at all and is really just kind of grumpy because of that.
It's
I
compelling.
enjoyed that and I miss it.
Yeah. I mean, I love it. I also love that this was like one of his first characters.
Yeah.
That it really
Well, and they could have, if they took that, they could have done the same with Zara. We all know why warlocks are always a good story. Because they've got this patron that jerks them around all the time. And if we saw a little bit of that from Zara, I would enjoy that as well. They're both really fun and likable characters, and kind of all they get to do is flip-flop back and forth between working with and against Vox Machina here.
Well, I mean, this was the first episode that was like a classic dungeon crawl that we've been able to see. And I really liked a lot of the things they were doing to symbolize that classic dungeon crawl. Like there were the traps that were being, and we had Vax that was clearly like trying to solve them. While there's also the Grog approach where he's like, just activate them all and then just go through after that. Like it's both sides of the coin. But then it also just was really showing those unique adversaries that they were going up against with the fish people, as well as that like undead priest fish that was like I really was enjoying that side of it. That was going. And I know Percy wasn't as eager as he was in the show, but I love because I think this was a great moment to remind people that Percy's actually the youngest in of
Yeah.
Vox Machina. Nobody ever really remembers that Percy is the baby of the party, but he is. Like everyone is at like I think Vex and Vax are like 27. I think Keyleth is around there as well. And I'm pretty sure Taliesin has said that at least at the beginning, that Percy is 19. Like,
Yeah. Well, and he's human, so he's fully human. He's the longest or the shortest lived, and he's still the youngest.
yeah,
He is absolutely the baby of the party, and he does end up kind of stumbling into things
yeah,
a lot of the time. I think this is a place where, along with entering Vasselheim, this is a place where he kind of shows his arrogance and his kind of like internal confidence that everything's going to work out for him because he's a noble and that's what
yeah.
happens. And the Briarwood shook that. And now he's back to being a noble and everything's going to work out for him.
There's
Yeah.
There's one line that's in the playthrough that was in the episode I was listening to earlier today that I'm really just sad that they took out. I mean, they could throw this line anytime, but Percy's like talking with the group about how he can use his status to get somebody out of jail. And Keyleth just turns over like, wow. Percy, that's like the most privileged thing I've ever heard you say. Taliesin turns around and he says, that's the most privileged thing you ever heard me say in front of you. And I died at that. Like, and I like, I think that's one of my favorite things about Taliesin as a player as well, is that he's
Yes.
just so witty and comes up with those things like so off the top of the head.
He's always on it with a one-liner. My favorite always being, help, it's again.
Life needs things to live.
Life needs things to live.
An all-time classic.
Absolutely.
But I also just really love the design of this because it wasn't it was because it's still supposed to be like a crypt to the Raven Queen. So there wasn't like it wasn't like a Hades temple where you'd expect there to be skulls and like
Right.
just it wasn't sinister. It just felt like a dark location.
Yeah,
And
it feels ancient and a little alien, and like everything in this world, because this world is like a lot of fantasy worlds, this world is actually post-apocalyptic. And you can kind of see that, these are ruins of a higher age, an age where they could do things that they can't anymore.
Yes.
And I think that that's what's in Vax's head when he's trying to negotiate all the traps, when he's getting exasperated at people for tripping the traps. He's saying, you have no idea what's down here. This isn't from our world. And he's the only one who could possibly know what is going on here. And he turns out to be right.
So I don't know if you've played this game yet, but it's a game that I won't say it's the most D&D game I've played, because obviously Baldur's Gate 3 is the most D&D game out there.
Yeah.
But this game is very close to feeling like a Critical Role play, and it's Crimson Desert that just came out recently.
I haven't tried it yet, but it's on my list.
Colby, don't make the mistake I did. It will take it takes your life and it just keeps pulling you in, and pretty soon you're giving up on sleep, you're giving up on eating, and it's all that matters. It seriously is so fun, but it is clearly like this post-apocalyptic but like fantasy game, because there's mech suits you can get in, there's like robotic birds that you can control, it's just there. No one really questions why. They're like, oh, that's just from the before times. We don't know what it is. Like, they were so uncivilized back then.
Yeah. And like The Legend of Zelda has, classically has that feeling as well of, this almost alien civilization that came before. And that's, it's almost a necessary part of fantasy worlds at this point. But I think that Exandria holds that up more than many worlds do.
Yes.
In a lot of the worlds, they're just saying, well, it's just, this is our stand-in for the Roman Empire. And so it's still a medieval society. In Exandria, we're talking flying cars and lasers and flying cities. In their Age of Arcanum, And this is a vestige of that. And it feels that way. Just the angles in the architecture feel like a different time when you could manufacture different things.
And I just want to bring this point back up, and we'll get back on track. But that's also a reason that I love the Thorn Prince series so much, because it's quite obviously a fantasy series in our own world where there's like AI systems, there's like skyscrapers, there's
Yeah.
the main character literally lets off a nuke at one point, but it's all like you don't realize all these things are until you like you get to the end of the story, or like, oh shit, this is Britain, like this is.
Yeah.
And it's just so fun to be able to see that. And I do like, there's a part of me that loves like magic just being unexplained, understandable, just its own separate thing. But I also do love the idea of magic being like remnants of an old time, and you're just tapping into something and utilizing it to your own. And I haven't listened to the stories of Exandria yet, so I don't know if that's the justification for magic being in the world or not. But I always do love of like, hey, because of the technology that we used to have, that's why magic now exists
Yeah.
in this world here.
Yeah, for anyone watching this who wants to read about or play in a world that typifies this to the greatest extreme that I know of, look into Numenera. It's a role-playing game. You and I have played it briefly. I think we did a one shot, but it is basically you play a billion years in the future after human civilization has conquered the stars and then fallen and then been replaced by something, and that conquered the stars and then fell again. And that happened 9 times over. And so all the magic in the world is just the general like nanobots in the air. And you can play a spooky magic themed character, and the world can handle that. But you can also play a character who's like, no, I understand that it's the nanobots, obviously. But yeah, I don't think that from what I remember, and I have stomped on the canon of Exandria so hard in my own games that I don't know what's real anymore. But my impression is that the magic originally comes from the gods,
Mm.
which in my campaign I decided to make them into aliens. But
Tomato.
and then the Age of Arcanum is the time when humans get uppity and think that they can do better.
I will mention this before moving back on. Like, I do really love that because I just covered Clash of the Titans, both the 1981 version and the 2010 version. And I do think that there is a level of like hubris within the gods and within man,
Yeah.
because I mean, that's the whole idea of the Greek mythology, is that the Titans ruled over the world and Zeus and the gods overthrew the Titans. And I don't really know exactly the story of like what happened to Olympus, but I imagine that there is a level of like, no, like humans stopped believing in the gods and eventually were able to not necessarily overthrow them, but become the rulers of the universe. But it's like this level and idea of like, it's like a vicious cycle of like, you might be on top now, but
Yeah.
eventually the rulers will be cast down to those that were being ruled before. And like,
Yeah, you
and
could
so on.
imagine a world where Greek mythology continued on the track that it was, and the gods are overthrown by the demigods like Hercules, and
Mhm.
they're overthrown by the regular people. Um, that it would be, and I'm sure that's something that the Greeks in the olden days thought about.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that was probably the draw of things. Like, hey, these gods, they're incredibly powerful, but you can get one over on
All it takes is a natural 20. That's all it
them.
takes.
Exactly. Or a really good idea. Like, you should steal fire from them.
But you better get away with it quick, otherwise you're holding the world up by your or get your liver plucked out. I'm
Yep.
mixing up my stories there. Is there anything else that we want to cover real quick on episode 3? I know that we sort of it's very much a dungeon crawl episode, so
It is.
I don't want to say that there's not a lot of meat to it. It's just more that there's a lot you
Yeah.
can just bite off at once.
Yeah, I'll comment again because I'm seeing it now that I didn't feel that Vex and Vax's backstory is all that effective as it was
Yeah.
applied in this episode. I think it needed more time. It needed a couple more factors. A couple
Yeah.
things didn't link up for me. It tells us what we need to know, and that's unfortunately about it. And of course, it's all leading up to the death of Vex, which if you think of the stories that come down the line, this is, in my mind, this is the first domino that falls. And the last one is Vex going away at the end of the fight with Vecna. Spoilers, massive spoilers.
Yeah. Oh, it's ruined.
But yeah, this 10-year-old show, I have spoiled it.
Well,
But yeah, I feel like this is the first domino that falls, and the way that I know that in reality it was more, a lot of this arc for Vax was Liam dealing with what was going on in his own life. I had forgotten about that when I last watched this yesterday. Without that in mind, it comes across more like the point they're trying to make is that Vex is very important to Vax, that she is the more independent of the two, even though he's brooding and he wants to, take his place in the party. He is the more needy of the two. And I think that was necessary to motivate the actions that he's going to take. But it felt, just based on the show, it felt a little out of nowhere. Why would Vax start seeing the Raven Queen when he sees
yes.
people die? Why does he have this draw toward the Raven Queen? And I don't think that is given enough background to really make a lot of sense unless you watched the live play.
Yeah. Well, and I want to like I there's so many things I want to touch on that you just said there, but I do want to preface this, and I believe I've said it before in our coverage of Vox Machina that I know, like, and I have definitely been able to separate because I love the energy that Liam O'Brien brings to the table, but I think Vax is actually the character that I struggle with the most. Just one because I mean, in the nature of being a rogue, like, he is just an asshole in so many different ways, and, like, there's just so many times that I struggled with him specifically, and I think that there's a lot of times that my biasy gets shown a little bit unfairly when watching the show, and I definitely am like, "Why is the Raven Queen popping up so much right now?" Other than, like, they're clearly trying to make it so that he's touched or being affected by that, which you can go with that, but at the same time, I'm just like, well,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time as well, I thought the line when Vex is like hunting and then she sees Vax crying in the middle of the woods, I low key thought that was the cringiest part. I'm just like, this doesn't, I'm not feeling anything. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, I was lost and you found me. And I'm just like,
How did you
you were
get
lost.
lost? Yeah, it's a moment that felt unearned to me.
Yeah.
And again, I'll just keep saying it. I think a lot of these problems could have been solved with a few extra episodes, a few extra minutes.
Yes. I and also this is I know I just said that, and I love Vex. I love Laura Bailey and I love Vex, but I almost want to be in the alternate timeline when Vex does not come back from the dead because
Yeah.
that's a completely different story.
Yes.
Like
Well, and
I
this is something that I see in my own campaigns. And one of the things that I will love 5e for forever. I know this is kind of rare. I love to bash on 5e. But what I love is how squishy characters are up to and including third level.
yeah.
Because what usually ends up happening is the players literally outside the game around the table are starting to get to know each other and are starting to become friends. They're starting to have fun with these characters. And then, level 3 is kind of a tipping point where you get an actual challenge. The DM feels a little bit comfortable because you've got some of your powers now and it's time to start actually playing your characters. And then a natural 20 happens and characters die. And more than once now, I've had campaigns that the story completely hinged on a death in the party that happened early on. And this really could have been that. This could have been the motivation for the rest of the the span of Vox Machina, or at least kept them involved in things.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
the way I look at it is that Vax up to this point and even later on, like obviously he doesn't have the rule that he has, but I view him as almost like a Batman like figure.
yeah,
Like he has his principles. He's a very skilled fighter. He's not magically gifted, but he's clearly just great at what he does. I think if he dies, we get the Red Hood. Like I think
yeah,
we get such a dark like I almost wonder like if Liam like retires Vax and like he eventually comes back as like I would have again, I want to be in that timeline so badly where the final villain is not Vecna, but a level 20 Vax that's angry at Vox
yeah,
Machina for letting his sister die.
yeah.
And because that,
Yeah, you could see him becoming an arc spanning villain, just coming back to assassinate them one after another.
yeah.
Because you know how angry he is at Percy for this. Percy trips the trap and it's Vex that dies. That is his fodder for so much drama. I don't know. I guess that's why I have a problem with resurrections in D&D games.
Yeah.
I think that most resurrections are to kind of like put a band-aid on temporary bad feelings that a player has over losing a character, but then you lose the opportunity to see how the rest of the party responds to that. And not every group wants to play that way. Not every group wants to play without character death.
Yeah.
But I think that the kind of default mode of play has become one where character death doesn't really happen. And certainly not after, we've all gotten to know them, kind of like what happened to Molly Mom.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm gonna put a spoiler alert thing up right here in post over here, but I really hate that Molly Mock comes back to life at the end of the campaign. Like again, I know that he's technically the villain, but in a different form in a lot of ways. But I having Molly die was such a significant part of the
Yeah.
campaign, and the players clearly took it personal and they made like adjustments to how they played. And I'm not saying that they went back to their old ways afterwards, but to me, it almost is like, okay, if death doesn't mean anything, then like, I mean, we've had this conversation so many times. Like,
Yeah.
if there's no consequences, like what it, and I know that they've talked about it, but they don't even really give that great answers on Talks Machina because their answers is like, oh, well, we're gifted by the gods. So the gods will bring us back and not bring grandma back. And I'm like, okay, but why? Why do you matter when you're literally an
Yeah.
ant? Like you're not
And
even
it's a huge world building problem.
yeah.
If resurrection exists in your world, how are the rich people exploiting that? How are there? Yeah, I mean, and most fantasy properties just kind of like keep that at arm's distance. If resurrection is a thing,
Yeah.
very seldom do you see any kind of treatment of that. But yeah, I am personally not a fan of pulling punches as often as I've done it. It
Yeah.
is hard to do as a DM, and I understand why there are so many tools and tricks that you can make or that you can do to pull your punches. If your point in at the end of the day is for people to be having a good time, and you don't really want to literally gut punch one of your players for a night or several nights, and people do get really attached to their characters.
Yeah.
So it can be a really hard thing to stand behind. But you're right that if death isn't genuinely there, if resurrection can be done, it opens up so many questions, takes away uh, the potential for real consequences for certain levels of characters. There is no giving real consequences to a level 16 D&D character.
Yeah.
There is no consequence other than the death of an NPC, which can be reversed with a resurrection.
Well,
That's it.
and to this day, I still think that the best fantasy story that has done resurrection the best has been George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire. But at the same time, that's so much role playing that you just would not really be able to implement because,
No.
sure, there's the whole chart of like, oh, you come back and your left eye doesn't work. Well, sorry, tough luck. But I mean, I think just losing a part of yourself so to the point where you're just literally a husk and like that's so much more interesting to me that like part of your soul is either dying or getting trapped on the other side. That's something that's interesting, and I wish that there was a way to implement that in a tabletop game. But again, when it's so reliant on role playing, unless you're with players that are, and I don't even know if I could comfortably, I'm saying, like, I'm not even saying that I'm a great D&D player, but I don't think I could do a comfortable, like, if my character died, I think I'd almost be like, you know what, like, just keep him dead rather than bring him back to life, because it'd be easier than trying to role play that part of that character is gone.
Yeah. Well, and this is something that I end up running into in a number of ways, but role playing any sort of mental or physical disability is a minefield. It's something that should be done only very carefully, and with a lot of compassion and understanding. And so, yeah, you're right. It's very hard to do. If there is resurrection with a cost, I could see your character can be resurrected, but they're an NPC after that. Or your character can be resurrected, but they go a little mad every time. I'm running a little bit of Cyberpunk Red, which deals with mental health to a great extent. As you get more cyberware, you come a little bit closer to that line of truly insane and not just a little crazy. And even that can be difficult to role play unless you're with people who are really, really committed to it. And if you've done the groundwork to do it safely and sensitive.
Well, and we'll move on in a second, but I just remember with Brant, my paladin, his flaw is that he had a crippling addiction to tobacco. Like that was, and like, if you wouldn't have implemented like him going through withdrawals, like, and it being like an actual mechanical thing, like, I know I would have not, like, that would have fallen off so quick, so easily, because it's a funny bit every once in a while, but at the same time, like, there's not like, unless and that's not even mechanically that was in the game. That was something you came up with. Like, this is something to keep this character accountable. It wouldn't have been kept accountable for me.
Yeah. that is still confusing. That's still in my homebrew library on D&D Beyond, and it's still confusing my players. Like, why is there a feat called Pipe Smoker?
It's like, now, children, come around the fire. Let me tell you about the biggest asshole to ever be a paladin. He had no idea what he was doing.
And no way.
Not until the 5th time he died, at least. But is there anything else that we want to talk about in this episode in particular?
I think that's it for me.
Awesome. Well, like I said earlier, guys, just because there's going to be episodes specifically talking about the dragons that are part of the Chroma Conclave, and they're just such an overarching character, we're going to be doing dragon grades after the episodes where we get such a highlight enough that we're able to give them appropriately, because one, these dragons deserve the attention for us to get as much information on them as possible. Two, there's going to be multiple episodes where we're able to get a lot of detail on them and we get to see a lot more of their personality. And three, we're already 2 hours over and we don't want to be here anymore. But we'll be back talking about episodes 4 through 6 next time. Colby, where can people find you in the meantime?
Rock Paper Science on YouTube. I haven't posted anything in a while, but new stuff is coming. So check out my Delta Green content on there, and hopefully soon we'll have some Cosmere RPG showing up, which I got to talk to you about.
Storms, I'm excited for that. No, again, thank you for coming on, Colby. I'm so excited to be back here in the world of Critical Role. In the meantime, everyone, be sure to like, share, subscribe, share it with your mom, share it with your dad, share it with your sister who might be resurrected next week by a undead queen. Who knows? We'll see, possibly. But until then, peace.
That's all for this week's Dragon Lore. Takes cold and hot, spread shore to shore. Enjoyed yourself? Please join the squad. Follow on social media at Big Liz Pod. And one quick reminder before you go, to rate, review, and share the show. Thank you for listening. It means a lot. See you next week, same time, same spot.